Thank you for downloading episode 344 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. This week, we have the election, as if nobody else is talking about it. Women holding out. Liberals packing their bags. Bulls parade on Wall Street. Rate cuts. Gavin Newsom doing Gavin Newsom stuff. The rush to install liberal justice. And the blame game. I'm Dave Roberts. With me is my partner, Sir Dever. Officially, Commissioner-elect Ken Pulley.
Yeah. I don't think one person said anything about it. Everybody was so giddy on the presidential election this last week.
Well, you didn't have an opponent.
No, I didn't, but you still win. I mean, it's still an event. You're not always on the ballot.
Yeah, and
I'm not complaining. Hey, I'm not complaining. So,
no, I mean, even the unopposed folks that I support, I called on Wednesday or Thursday and said, "Hey, congratulations! I know it wasn't exactly a nail biter, but it's official."
Yep.
And as the show drops, it is Veterans Day. This is the day that it's appropriate to say thank you for your service, not Memorial Day.
Exactly.
You have Armed Service Days for those who are still serving, and Veterans Day for those who did serve, and Memorial Day for those who didn't make it back or came back as cargo. But yeah, that's we were talking before the show. That's one of the Memorial Day and Veterans Day, people tend to get kind of confused. What was Veterans Day? Was Armistice Day before that? And they just kind of merged it together. I think it was Armistice Day at the end of World War I.
Yeah.
I tell you what, that war couldn't end fast enough, could it?
I know.
Living in trenches full of
I can't imagine.
everything from rain to pee and everything else. Horrible. Horrible. So, the big news last week. Trump won bigly.
Wasn't it crazy? I mean, I was so tired. I had a trip the next morning, so I didn't stay up till about 10:30 or 11. But I think it was done by then. My wife woke me up about 2:30 and told me Trump won. It was decisive, and that's what I wanted. I wanted Trump to win, but no matter who won, I wanted it to be like this, where we woke up the next morning and there was no questioning the process, the ballots, and the machines. No more Candace Taylor running around spewing all her nonsense. I wanted it to be just like it is. So thank goodness. I mean, he's 295 electoral votes at this point, and he's probably going to get Arizona and Nevada. So, I mean, just a resounding win.
It's very likely that he'll end up with over 300 electoral votes.
Yeah, which is just a blowout in today's world. I mean, just a huge win.
Well, about 10 o'clock or 10 or 11 o'clock, they called California because all they had to do was officially wait for the polls to close. No one thought California was going Trump.
No, but I was surprised. Yeah, that's true. I was surprised how long Georgia took.
So was I. And my wife even commented that she's kind of ashamed of our state to be that close.
Yeah, I mean, there were others. Yeah, so Georgia was a lot closer, I think people thought, which is kind of scary moving into, well, I say it's scary. Kemp still destroyed Stacey Abrams. I think Kemp was a good candidate. Abrams is not a good candidate. And Trump, people just are so, they're so hot or cold on Trump. So I still think Georgia's a lot more red than the election indicated.
We'll figure that out in 2 years.
Yep, exactly.
The midterms will say a lot.
I think it stays really red.
The races are tightening up even with the state house. Joseph Gullett's race was a lot closer than it should have been.
Yeah, but I don't think any other Republican incumbents lost last week. I was looking down the state representative list. I think everybody, which is good and bad, it shows that they have gerrymandered Georgia so much that really the only challenges nowadays are in primaries. But yeah, I think every incumbent won with the exception of that Keisha Maynor. You remember the lady, the black female that switched parties last year over the school choice? She got beat like 90-10 or something. But
that was never going to be close.
That was never going to be close because she switched parties.
I haven't looked at Catherine Bernard's yet.
She got beat. She had 38%, but she's in a heavily Democrat district.
She's in a very, very
blue
district.
So the incumbent won there. Yeah, but Georgia,
and I applaud her for being willing to put herself out there and to bring to the attention of the electorate the idea of liberty, freedom.
Her district doesn't want it, but yes, Catherine would be a super representative up under the dome.
I would love to recruit her to move out here.
Yep. No, she's been good. I'm not sure her style of politics can win, though. That's part of the problem. I don't even know if she can win a Republican primary, to be honest.
I don't know. She's when allowed to talk and get in front of people, first of all, she's brilliant.
But most politicians are not that brilliant.
No, they're not.
I mean,
no, and neither is the electorate.
No, the electorate gets dumber every year.
And I'm going to paraphrase George Carlin here. Imagine how dumb the average person is, and realize that half the people are dumber than that guy.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I don't mean to be dismissive. I'm obviously not talking to our audience here because they obviously have taste, class, intelligence to tune in to us every week.
Yeah, and it's on both sides too. I mean,
it is.
Look, I've complained about. I don't think we have a Republican Party now, but it's certainly not based on what the Republican Party represented 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. I mean, we have moved. I mean, Trump runs the party now, and Trump's a populist. He's not a conservative. He's not what Reagan was or any other Republicans in the past. He's transformed the party, and now the party is represented by one person who doesn't have a lot of the conservative principles I think a lot of us have of small government, individual freedom and liberties. Trump's as far from small government as anyone can be. And I think J.D. Vance is not a small government Republican either. So it's going to be interesting. And I put a note in here that they really have an opportunity in January to redefine what Washington, D.C. does and to really shrink the size of government, shrink the budgets, get the budgets back under control. And I honestly have very little confidence that they're going to do that. I think we'll blow the budgets out again. I think we'll keep spending $2 trillion more than we take in. I just think it's going to be a different type of government at this point.
And look, we tend to look at history through the lens of today, 2024. Reagan was not that conservative. He was a hell of a communicator, but he was a deal maker. Was it Tip O'Neill? Was that the speaker?
Yeah.
But he was a deal maker. So the reason that you can't buy a machine gun made after 1986 or registered after 1986 is because Reagan signed the act that you can't produce new machine guns. I know that sounds petty, but weapons of war is why we have a Second Amendment. We fought the Revolutionary War with privately owned cannon and musket. We didn't have a government. So a lot of the cannons were coming from guys like John Hancock, who was a smuggler who had cannons on his ships. So, we really don't see the Jeffersonian type of small government.
And I think we did before. Yeah, I sort of disagree. I mean, Bush is the one that really blew it out. I mean, the national debt was less than $1 trillion until Reagan came in. I mean, we've blown the deficit out since we got involved in the never-ending wars over the past 20 years, 25 years.
Well, think about the TSA. The TSA was never supposed to be this giant juggernaut of a agency. It was supposed to be an oversight agency. Individual airports were supposed to pay for their own security, and the TSA would have oversight to make sure that things are being done the way the government wants it to. But now they are government employees. They're if you even say boo to them, they could put you on the no fly list. Yeah. And look, I'll tell you that the TSA at ATL is awful.
Oh yeah,
rude.
Really bad.
And when you go places like even Detroit, flying out of DTW, because I'm jocular anyway. You kind of cut up with them as you're going through, and in Atlanta you just get a blank stare. But anywhere else in the country, you'll get people that kind of cut up with you, and hell, it's got to make their day go better when you're not an insufferable
You would
insufferable
think.
piece of crap.
I mean, working happy is a lot better than working like irritated and angry, but they definitely look that way. So, by the way, did anyone tell Jimmy Carter that President Trump won?
I don't know.
Do you remember that picture of him about 2 weeks ago where it looked like he was already dead and they said he voted that day? I mean, good grief. He said he wanted to stay alive so he could vote on the first woman president. So I guess I'm not sure he's going to make it another 4 years, but
I don't know what female they have on their bench besides Gavin Newsom.
Pete Buttigieg is close.
Yes, him and his chest feeding.
I know. What a mess.
Oh, he's just awful. Buttigieg is awful. I mean, they called him Pothole Pete, and because of the way he ran Indianapolis, they called him Pothole Pete. And Biden's like, yeah, he'd be perfect Secretary of Transportation. He can't fix the roads in his own city.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about the appointments a little bit. Susie Wiles was Trump's first appointment. I had never heard her name before, but she's really credited with Trump getting this win. They say she's a veteran of Florida politics. She's going to be the chief of staff in D.C. for Trump, but she was his 2016 Florida campaign director.
That's impossible.
Yes.
If you've listened to Mark Cuban, that's impossible because Trump would never surround himself with an intelligent,
smart woman. Yeah, but then she was his senior advisor in 2024. Everybody says she's the one that kind of tries to, as much as possible, keep him disciplined and on message. And then she's not a Washington insider, so she's outsider. So it's going to be really different for her.
She's a whip in a chair to keep him under control.
Yeah, she's 67 years old. You rarely hear her talk. And then this is the most, besides president, this is the most powerful job in D.C. is being the president's chief of staff. I mean, she runs everything. And
she's being tasked with being his gatekeeper.
Yes, right.
And it's not going to be a free-for-all this time. Trump learned from his first 4 years.
I hope he did.
As much as I make fun of him for the way he talks and things like that, but he was wholly and totally unprepared to take office last time. And as much as we say we want somebody outside the swamp, that kind of stuff, the knowledge of how to govern and how DC works is advantageous. So, and to quote Trump on it is, he was unprepared. So on his transition team, he had a bunch of swamp monsters. Not quote. It's essentially what he said is he had a bunch of swamp monsters who said you need to appoint this guy and that guy and this guy, and Trump just went with it because he didn't have a team. Look, in 2016, nobody was more shocked that he won than Trump.
Mm-hmm. I know. I still think they're going to appoint a bunch of swamp people, though. I mean, that's the ones that know the government up there. We'll see what he appoints. But, the other ones that are being talked about is Robert F. Kennedy to head this
DHS or something.
DHS. And, that dude's full of conspiracy theories. I mean, he said he's going to take the fluoride out of the water. He's saying all kind of stuff that's people are kind of laughing at and mocking at the moment. And then Elon Musk to run the government efficiency organization, which sounds like another czar that Trump's going to appoint. And hopefully Elon could be good, but I think he's going to figure out real quick. You just can't go up there and wave a magic wand and fire a bunch of people in DC.
No, you can't. And I wish you could. I wish you could walk into the
you
EPA
should be able to.
And just go, you've seen Office Space.
Yeah, but you can't.
Sit down with a short sleeve white button down and a tie and go, what would you say you do here?
Yep. So he's going to struggle, I think. And then Thomas Massey, who's my favorite, they are talking about him leading the Department of Agriculture, which would be amazing because that's kind of right up Thomas's alley. And then Marco Rubio for Secretary of State is being tossed around. So those are, I haven't seen any more at this point, but those are the names kind of being tossed around right now for certain cabinet appointments.
And look, reminiscent of the 1980 election and 81 inauguration of Reagan, speaking of, the despots around the world are already starting to clean their acts up.
Yes, they are.
And there is something to be said for
strong leadership.
Coming off crazy, perceived crazy as hell.
Yeah, there is. I mean, they know Trump's not playing and means business, and that is totally different than some Biden or Kamala that's been in it their whole life.
He's the only Sink commander-in-chief to drop a Moab, the mother of all bombs. And it is the largest traditional bomb. Anything bigger than that, you have to go nuke. And he dropped it on terrorists. I mean, what a horrible way to go! It explodes in the air, sucks the oxygen out of the air, and burns you to death.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I mean, don't be a terrorist.
Yeah, but it is a lot of perceived strength in Trump, and that's why I think Putin called him and said he wants to try to end this pretty quick. I saw Europe said they were going to start buying oil from the U.S. versus Russia now. So there's a lot of stuff going on that people are already starting to talk about.
Well, it goes to show you how weak Biden was perceived.
Yeah,
and feeble-minded. And look, he was never the sharpest knife in the drawer. You're talking about a guy who got nailed for plagiarism. Said he finished the top 10% of the class, but he finished the bottom 10% of his class. But he was always politically astute. I mean, he somehow figured out how to become a multimillionaire, never doing anything besides working for the government. Sort of like Bernie Sanders. And you have a note here that Iran did try to assassinate Trump.
Yeah, he did. So there was last Friday, there was a report drop. It was kind of breaking news that they have indicted a couple Iranian assets with trying to plot to assassinate President Trump. So this was kind of breaking news last Friday. The criminal complaint was filed in federal court in New York. It says an unnamed official in Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard asked a couple people in the United States to assassinate him. So that, I know we talked about that a little bit before, but now there's actually charges. It's not just hearsay at this point. There's actually been a story about this, and complaints have been filed.
And on Friday, speaking of federal court, Jack Smith made a motion to dismiss the federal charges against Trump.
Yeah, and Trump said he was going to fire Jack Smith his first day in office. So I think that's one of the first acts that Trump will do, which the media will go crazy over. But
Letitia James has said she is not backing off. That's the Attorney General in New York. She is just an ugly person inside and out. She's just a horrible person.
Yes, she is.
There's no way those convictions would hold up to appeal because there was no victim.
Nope, I agree.
So as soon as it goes for appeal, she truly, in her heart and soul, thinks she's going to lock up the president-elect next week.
Well, Trump is getting sentenced this week. So I think on Thursday, he has to appear back in New York for his sentencing. I don't know what's going to happen. I assume that the judge is going to not sentence him to anything, but that'll be very interesting when he has to appear in court. I think he has to appear in court on Thursday. What a
doo-doo show that's going to be. Remember, he's no longer a former president. He's a president-elect, which means his security detail just got a lot bigger and hopefully more professional than what happened in Butler. I mean, they shot his ear and shot him right to the White House by doing that.
Yep, exactly.
So we're already seeing people get in line. We're already seeing Jack Smith drop the charges. Fannie Willis, there's still a hearing to be had in Georgia. It's about whether or not she can prosecute the crime at all, the perceived crime at all. And I think she would be well served just to drop it. She won re-election. And look, you're not going to unseat a black female Democrat in Fulton County. You're just not. That's just not going to happen. And plus, Fulton County, as blue as is, they want to slap her on the back for going after Trump. They think it's the best thing ever. So, yeah, and you've got a note here. There's not going to be mass deportations.
I kind of like to get on my Republican friends or my MAGA friends. I think Trump's going to start mass deporting 15 million Hispanics or illegal aliens. That's not happening.
What is going to happen?
But it's not going to happen.
What is going to happen is immigration will be forced to do their job. So all these municipalities, when they pick up illegals for crimes, whether it's as something as minor as driving without a license, or any more serious crime, they're going to go pick them up and deport them as criminals. So that's they're not going to go door to door. This idea of going wearing brown shirts and going door to door and are you hiding Mexicans in here? No, that's not going to happen. However, it'll be a quiet deportation. It'll be ICE responding to these local municipalities that are required by law to report, hey, listen, we've got somebody who we can't verify citizenship on, that we think they're here illegally, and they put them on an ICE hold. And for the last 4 years, ICE has not responded to those holds. So they do whatever 72 hours, whatever the hold is, and they have to let them go. They can't just keep them in jail because the states don't have the authority to prosecute federal crimes.
Yep.
So yeah, we're not going to see door to door throwing people on trains. This is not 1938 Poland.
Yeah, that's just not happening. If people think that's happening, they've lost their mind.
They have lost their mind. Speaking of, liberal women decide to stop giving it up.
Isn't this crazy? So this is part of, I don't know if everybody's heard this, but this is American women are joining a 4B movement and abstaining from romantic relationships with men. Now, we're only a week out from the election, but I don't know if you've seen all the videos online, but women are saying they're joining this movement. They're not going to have a sexual relationship with men anymore. They're not going to date men. And they're also shaving their head, like with scissors. So they're just sitting in front of their camera and recording it. And by the way, this movement began in South Korea in 2019 to dismantle basically traditional expectations of what women, of how men and women operate and work together, right?
What did Ron White say? If you don't have sex with me for 6 months, I'll have sex with somebody else. I know. I've seen me do it.
And the 4B movement, I know, and this 4B movement though, comes from no marriage. That's one of them. No childbirth, no dating, and no sex. And it encourages women to reclaim their autonomy over their bodies and reject traditional gender norms of marriage and childbearing.
I don't care what people do.
I don't either. I think it's great that liberal women are not going to procreate any longer.
They're not going to breed.
I mean, isn't that great that we're going to have a whole lull of liberal women basically having babies?
No, because they're lying. They're lying.
That is true.
Look, dirty secret that really takes men and until they really get to be adults to realize this, but women like sex too. We like to play it off as they feel it's an obligation or whatever. Women like sex too, so they're punishing themselves. Look, if you want to cut your hair off and honestly cut off your opportunity to get a decent job, and I'm sorry, unless you're a guy who is balding and you go ahead and shave your head. My little brother's bald, but it wasn't his idea. But other than that, you don't go into a professional environment with a crew cut. You just don't. Especially, and I'm sorry, there are female norms. It doesn't mean you have to have long hair. It doesn't mean you have to look like Crystal Gale. It doesn't mean that you are under obligation to style your hair a certain way or anything like that. It just means that you need to look professional. Even if it's short hair, you look professional. You don't look like you're somebody who are cutting your hair with kitchen shears on TikTok.
Right.
It's just stupid, and they're lying. They're 100% lying. You're going to tell me that you find the man of your dreams, you get married, buy a house, and then start talking about having kids, and it's like, no, I'm protesting Donald Trump. We're not going to have kids. What?
Right.
Well, let's just go down to the courthouse right now and file divorce papers. Because and this is something that we learned. We were unable to have kids. Is you have a relatively short window that women are fertile. Guys can knock a chick up at 80 years old. Who did that? Michael Douglas? No, Bob De Niro.
Yeah,
Robert De Niro is 80-something years old and just had another baby. I'm like, man, I'm 47 and chasing a toddler around sounds exhausting.
Yep, I know.
But yeah, I don't. This is stupid. They've talked about this stuff before, and I kind of side with the feminists in Korea, because some of that is cultural, that women are subjugated in certain areas of society in Asia, that they are subservient, and so I kind of empathize with them saying that we want to be equal part in society more than I say that women just pitching a hissy fit because the person they wanted to win the presidency didn't and got her butt handed to her.
I don't know what, like I see a lot of like transsexual, people that are transsexual, I guess, bisexual, gay. Like they keep saying they lost all their rights now and they don't have any more rights. Like what occurred during Trump's first 4 years that would lead anybody to think they're going to lose rights? You mean
like when he said that Caitlyn Jenner can use any bathroom in the White House he or she wants to?
Yeah, I don't understand where these people are coming from. I mean,
look, to say that I don't want anatomical men competing in women's sports, I don't want an anatomical man changing clothes in a girl's locker room, is a far cry from saying I want to strip you of your rights. It's simply saying that a 6'7" dude cannot play on the girls' basketball team.
Yeah,
that's all.
I just don't get it. I really don't.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what rights they don't have. Supreme Court has already held up the right of gay folks to get married to each other. Fine, I don't care. Why should only straight guys be miserable? but I don't know. This goes right into next to the next story, which more liberals are deciding to leave. No, you're not.
No, they're not leaving anywhere.
You're not going to leave a tenure position at Harvard just because you're mad that Donald Trump won. No, you're going to keep your if you're a college professor, you're going to keep teaching college and attempting to poison young minds with your liberalism. No, you're not going anywhere. You know what? Canada doesn't want you. Now, if you're Jennifer Lopez and you show up with hundreds of millions of dollars, they're going to say, welcome. Here, whatever their version of the green card is, here you go. But like average just liberals, Canada doesn't want you. They have very, very strict rules as far as who they'll let in.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, 100%. All these countries do. And I was watching the videos online of people commenting like, okay, so you're moving somewhere? Well, let us know the rules are for moving in that new country. Because it's not as easy as just walking into the country and saying, okay, I'm here now. I'm ready to move. I mean, that's not how it works in 99% of countries.
And again, if you're sitting on $100 million, no problem.
Totally different.
But if you actually have to work for a living, and look, even what is perceived as rich people have to go to work Monday morning.
And why would anybody want to move to Canada? I just can't get over that. Yeah, so Google searches for move to Canada surged 1,200%. And in 24 hours after the polls closed, similar searches about moving to New Zealand climbed nearly 2,000%, while those for Australia jumped 820%. Do these people really think New Zealand wants a bunch of crazy liberals moving in?
The Kiwis don't want you.
No,
they want
Australia
you for 10,
doesn't want them either.
They want you for 10 days. They want you to come, spend your money, go to the Great Barrier Reef, go listen to someone play a didgeridoo. All right, any liberals out there that are thinking about moving to Australia, allow me to counter your argument with snakes.
Oh, they've got so many things that'll kill you in Australia.
Everything in Australia will kill you.
Yep.
A kangaroo will kill you. Box jellyfish will kill you. There's another dozen highly venomous snakes in Australia. And whenever you see crazy videos of someone taking a venomous snake out of a toilet, guess where that is? That's Australia. So if you want to take the chance of getting bitten right on the chocolate starfish by a venomous snake, go for it. But you're not going to find anybody to suck the venom out.
Nope.
By the way, sucking venom out does not work. But yeah, they have very, very dangerous elapids. But notice they're all talking about going places that are nice. They're not talking about moving to Mexico City. Not talking about moving violent places. They're talking about going to Australia, beautiful country, New Zealand, gorgeous country. Canada, for the most part, for the 4 months of summer they have, Canada's very nice. I've been to Canada a couple times. I've never been there in February. The only reason I would is just go up and see the Northern Lights or something, but then I would get my happy fat butt back down to Georgia, where our idea of winter is 32-degree low. So, yes, nobody's leaving. So the stock market responded to Trump's victory by shooting up.
Yeah, just through the sky. So the Dow Jones Industrial Average surged 3.5% last Wednesday.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's a lot. Record close of 43,000 and change. The S&P popped 2.53% and NASDAQ climbed 2.95%. And then it's continued. So that was last Wednesday that it popped. It went up a small percentage on Thursday. And even on Friday, it held its ground. And even after 2 days of really large gains, it still held its ground on Friday. So, the market just really popped.
You typically see profit taking. When you see
you will at a certain point, especially getting towards the end of the year.
Yeah, we'll see some profit taking. So that market will soften a little bit. The best analogy I ever heard, and I may have said it on the show before, was from an investment guy when I was in banking. And he said, watching the stock market is like watching someone go up a flight of stairs while doing a yo-yo. You're so mesmerized by the ups and downs, you ignore the overall trend.
Yeah.
So yes, I would not be surprised to see January 1 roll across and it's back down around 39,000 because, again, profit taking. These investors are what they'll do is they'll sell that stock, take the profit out, and then when the price drops, go and reinvest. And it's a cycle that we see all the time. This, to me, is also indicative of inflation. Nothing happens in a vacuum. So when you have too much money in the market, too much money within the populace, you start seeing people spend that money, and they're spending the money on stocks. So that causes the stocks to go up. Plus, when you see the gross numbers of profit that these companies have, the gross profit looks awesome. But the fact is that gross profit is indicative of the prices, whether you're talking about Kroger, Publix, Target, Walmart. You start seeing these gross numbers go up, and so investors get excited. But it just has to do with the overall cost. The goods they're selling are higher. So percentages to me are more important than actual raw numbers. And 3.5% in a day on the Dow is enormous.
Yeah, it's a big number.
When you think about that's one day, and if you go to a bank and get a CD, you may get a 4.5% annually. When you think about it, it's only 1% off of what you can get at a bank for an entire year happened in one day. So, we start talking about J.P. Morgan Chase up 11.5%, Wells Fargo 13%.
Tesla was up big. Yeah, they were all up big.
I think Tesla's thing is perception. Is Elon won when Trump won. I still don't know how viable that Cybertruck is because I still think it's ugly as hell. It looks like what a 6-year-old would draw a truck to look like. But it's cool. I mean, the body on it is bulletproof for the most part. I mean, it's the idea is cool. I don't see the practical nature of it yet. And even the Tesla cars are cool. Especially the super high end ones that have four motors, a motor on each wheel, has no loss of torque. All the power is directly given to each wheel, and they're fast. They're cool. I don't have in my life it would not work because I drive too much. Yep. Now my wife, who has a 10-minute commute on a bad day, she could get a Tesla and drive back and forth to work for a week without ever having to plug it in. But I think it's a feather in Trump's cap. This is all perception. It's not this. I don't know. These numbers are based in reality. I think it's a lot of perception, and we'll see profit taking. We'll be back around 39, 38,000, probably start the year, and then again for first quarter optimism, it'll be right back up at 43 to 45,000.
Yep.
So the Fed, and look, to Powell's credit, and I am very critical of Jerome Powell, to his credit, they knew what they were going to do, but they did not do it before the election.
Yeah, they did it on Thursdays. They did it a couple of days after the election, but they did cut the interest rate another quarter of a point. That's really, I don't think, the news on Chairman Powell. So Trump nominated him to lead the Fed back in 2019, I think is when he went in, and he had to be confirmed by the Senate. But last week, the reporters asked him, Trump's been pretty critical of him, and the reporters asked the chairman if he would leave if Trump asked him to step down. He said no. He said the president has no authority over my job. So I got to look into that more. But supposedly, even though he was appointed by the president cannot make him leave or step down or fire him.
Well, the Fed's a monster in and of itself.
Yeah, they're not a governmental organization.
Right.
Either. They're owned by banks. Yeah.
Right. We tend to think because it says federal,
but it's
that
not.
it belongs to the government. It does not. What's the name of the book? And I haven't read it yet. The Monster from St. Simon's Island or whatever it was. You know, they I think it was St. Simon's they went to. They locked themselves in a hotel and conceived this monstrosity on how to control the currency for the people of the United States without actually being held accountable to the people of the United States.
But I still don't understand how the president appoints the chairman of the Fed, but then the president has no authority to make him step down or fire him. I guess they just come up every 4 years. Whoever's in office can appoint, and I guess he can appoint a new one at a certain point, but he can't make him step down during his term.
And look, Alan Greenspan served over several different presidents. Greenspan was closer to being a libertarian than anything else we've ever had at the Fed. I believe a young Alan Greenspan was in Ayn Rand's circle of friends when he was a young man. So you're talking about the author of Atlas Shrugged The Fountainhead.
Yeah, he got appointed to his second term in May 23rd of 2022. So he's in through at least 2026. Yeah, that's interesting.
So yeah, it's going to end on a midterm, and then you have to go through another Senate confirmation. And obviously, with what the Republicans are holding now, will probably be 55 seats in the Senate. It'd be no problem getting his pick through. But we don't know what's going to happen after the midterm. If the Senate flips back, and presidents often in their midterms lose Congress.
Yep.
Clinton did, Obama did, Bush did. So we see this pattern over and over, that the presidents lose, even ones with a great mandate like Nixon had a hell of a mandate. He won like 48 or 49 states in 1972. People forget how popular he was. You want to talk about, just an old-fashioned country butt whooping. Nixon handed one out, and I think that was against Mondale. I can't recall. So, the interest rates coming down is a good thing for most of us personally. It's a good thing for the auto industry for sure, because that's been a whole. You can't increase the interest rates and make a halfway decent pickup truck be $100,000 and expect those things to fly off the shelves. They just don't. But it also helped things, recreational markets, RVs, boats, airplanes, stuff like that get a whole lot more affordable when the borrowing rate starts coming down. All right, so old Newsom.
Isn't that funny?
He has called for a special session to protect California values.
Oh, yeah. Already. So after less than 36 hours, this was last week, he won't say special session because he said the freedoms we hold dear in California are under attack and we won't sit idle. I don't know how he knows that 2 days after the president was not even in office yet, right? We got like 73 more days or 70 more days before Trump takes office. Yeah,
and once I don't even think that Gavin Newsom doesn't even come up on Trump's radar. He's got bigger fish to fry. He obviously thinks more of himself than anybody else does, because most of us, we kind of laugh at Gavin Newsom, and he's obviously an elitist, and he thought it was perfectly okay for him to go to the French Laundry and eat without a mask on when he told everybody else in the state to wear a mask.
Yep.
He's a dipstick. He thinks he's a candidate for 28.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, 100% he is. The Democrats have got to come up with new leadership. Now, I'm not sure their new leadership needs to be as far left as Newsom is. I think that, they're going to toss the crazies out of the party, just like the Republicans need to toss the crazies out of the party. They need to toss their crazies out.
I could see Shapiro.
Yeah, I think Shapiro's northeast type guy. I don't think a Californian though is going to.
He's also a coal state guy.
Yep.
So if you come in with the idea that I'm still a domestic energy guy, but here are my policies and how I differentiate myself from the Republican, which, in my opinion, unless something goes horribly awry in the next 4 years, will be J.D. Vance. He's the presumptive nominee for 28. And look, a lot of things could happen in the next 4 years. Lots of things could happen in the next 4 years. So we don't know. J.D. Vance is a very good communicator. Very smart. I don't agree with everything he does politically, but he's very smart, good looking, young. He's the Republicans' version of Kennedy. And honestly, if John F. Kennedy were coming up today, he'd be Republican.
Yeah, you sure wouldn't be Democrat.
So yeah, Gavin, sit down, shut up, go run your state. Go figure out what the hell you're gonna do with all the homeless people sleeping at the San Francisco airport or crapping on the streets in L.A. Why don't you go address that? And because none of us care. You protect California values. Trump just doesn't care. California's not even on his radar. He's trying to make himself relevant, and he's just not.
I know.
All right, so the Democrats are looking to cram a new Supreme Court justice in, and the person they're targeting is Sonia Sotomayor.
Yeah, right. This was a pretty crazy headline last week, but she's only 70, which is getting pretty old for a SCOTUS justice, but they say she suffers from type 1 diabetes, and she's the oldest of the 3 remaining Democrat Party-appointed justices. So there is a Republican Democrat on the bench. A lot of people forget that. But what they don't want to have happen is another RBG where she died during Trump's presidency, and he gets to flip a switch or he gets to flip a judge from Democrat to not. And look, they're not supposed to be political, but more liberal leaning to more conservative leaning. So what they're trying to get her to do, they're pressuring this justice to step down so then Biden can try to ram through another Supreme Court justice during these 70 days between now and when the new Congress takes office. Because right now Democrats control the Senate, and they got rid of the filibuster a couple of years ago. So you can push through a Supreme Court justice with 51 votes at this point.
It would be very, very difficult unless they have somebody in the on deck circle.
I think they've definitely got people in the on deck circle. I just think, I think it'll be tough with Christmas and Thanksgiving.
Because Congress won't be in session.
But I mean, Republicans pushed through when Trump was leaving. How fast did they push through? I forget the last appointment, but they pushed that guy through in a couple weeks. It felt like. I mean, it was real fast.
Yeah, I don't know. I can it happen? Yes. I haven't seen. First of all, as much as I bang on him, Biden has shown a lot of class since the election last week. He called Trump to congratulate him, invited him to come by, said he wants to have his people work with the transition team to make it as smooth as possible. Honestly, Biden is showing the class that Trump did not in 2020 and 2021. Trump didn't even show up to the inauguration. And look, it's not historical, the fact that Kamala Harris has got to certify the election results, because Al Gore had to do it in 2000, or 2001. By the time they actually did the certification in the Senate. So there's a lot going on with that. First of all, Sotomayor is one of the worst justices up there. She's not overly. I hate to say that a Supreme Court justice is not intelligent. She's not a constitutionalist at all.
Right.
She has her core beliefs, and that's just the way it is. I've read her dissents and stuff, and it just when you read Clarence Thomas write a dissent, it's a damn dissent. I mean, Clarence Thomas it uses a pen like a sword. Yeah. I mean, when he writes an opinion, it is very pointed.
Yeah, this is really good.
Yeah, it's fantastic reading. If you're a policy nerd like we are, when I see Justice Thomas have a dissent or an opinion on something, I sit down and read every word of it, because he's just absolutely brilliant, and just the way he uses the English language and can cut you to the bone with his words. He's absolutely brilliant. Look, it's not going to be a big, if they do that, if they cram through another liberal justice, like you said, 40 something years old, that's going to be on the bench for another 40 years. That really doesn't raise an eyebrow with me. I just don't. It would be tough. He would have to, like I said, someone has to be on the on deck circle already, ready to go, and they still have to have the hearings. Now they can do them quickly, but we're 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving, and nothing happens in D.C. in December.
Yeah, we'll see how bad they want it, and then. The other Supreme Court justice that I think the first 2 years that Trump's in, they're talking about Clarence Thomas actually retiring or stepping down at a certain point, so Trump can appoint a younger justice to the bench, because Clarence Thomas is actually getting really old at this point. There's been a lot of controversy around his last few years in the Supreme Court, so we could see him step down.
I hate it. I hate it because he has been an originalist.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
And I don't know that Trump is going to put somebody who is my idea of someone who's going to stick with framers' intent.
Yep.
Because Trump's a populist. But he did fine with Amy Barrett Cohen.
He appointed 3, so he did pretty good with all 3 of them. I mean, the worst Republican justice or conservative justice is this Roberts that Bush put in.
Yeah, and I did send Roberts an email and asked him to stop using my last name. He's an embarrassment. I never got a response. But now, if that's what they want to do, oddly enough, I kind of feel for Sotomayor in this, and that 70 is not old on the bench. 70 is old to do what I do for a living. You're not going to be toting air conditioners around the side of a house at 70 years old. But as long as you have your mental faculties, and look, with Biden being in his 80s, it's not the age that's screwing him up. He has cognitive decline. That's though age is a complicating factor, it doesn't mean that every 80-year-old is a doddering old fool like Biden is. It's that as long as she's sharp, her diabetes, Wilford Brimley, her diabetes shouldn't be an issue as long as it's under control. As long as she takes, and she has access to the second best medical care anywhere. The only person who gets better medical care than a Supreme Court justice is the president.
Yep, probably so.
She has world-class health care. She could serve for another 10 years. I mean, she could serve, it's a lifetime appointment. She could serve as long as she wants. But right, you don't want an RBG who's falling asleep on the bench at nearly 90 years old. One, I think it's an embarrassment. And I also think it's insulting to the attorneys who go to argue before the Supreme Court, which is a huge feather in your cap to even argue before the Supreme Court. And then you look up and one of the justices is taking a snooze while you make your arguments. So, I think it's kind of two extremes. RBG should have stepped down, but she didn't. But at 70, I don't like pushing somebody out at 70 because you're trying to play the long game, because that's not what the Supreme Court was supposed to be about. It was about evaluating laws and cases against the Constitution, not, it wasn't meant to be a political, as political as it is now, because it certainly is political. This is a good time to remind you these are our opinions, not those of anyone not on the show or any respective company for which we may work, own, or otherwise associate ourselves with on a regular or irregular basis. Also, you can find other episodes and relevant stories over at thegeorgiavirtue.com. Kenneth, you came up with the mule.
Yeah, this is a pretty easy. I think they've been a mule a couple times, but it's all of the people on The View. There was a couple things last week. I don't know about you, but when Trump started winning, I cut it on MSNBC because I wanted to see all the people crying. Wednesday morning, I woke up and I searched for what time does The View come on. So all the ladies of The View, this is Sunny Hostin, Whoopi Goldberg, and a couple others. They all wore black in mourning on Wednesday.
Look, here's the thing.
Oh, my goodness.
Up until The View and stuff, I love Whoopi Goldberg. Jumpin' Jack Flash, classic movie. Hilarious. Her stand-up, hilarious, that she did back in the 80s. Very, very, very talented woman. But she's just got this Trump derangement syndrome, which is so odd because when he was running in 2015, 2016, he went on The View and they gave him big hugs. Whoopi gave him a kiss on the cheek. They'd known each other for decades. And just once he became a viable candidate, then the venom came out. I don't know who in the hell watches The View. I see snippets of The View on the Gutfeld show, but that's as much as I see of The View. I don't know who these mush-brained people are that tune into The View every day. I cannot even know what time it comes on. Was it 1 o'clock in the afternoon 11. Or something? 11. 11? Yeah, I don't know. What's funny is I've noticed, because I'm getting old, I spend a lot of time in doctor's offices, they don't show The View in the doctor's offices anymore.
Oh, really?
They've gone almost exclusively like HGTV, House Hunters, that kind of stuff, because if you put on CNN, you're going to piss off all the Republicans. If you put on Fox, you're going to piss off all the Democrats. If you put on The View, you're going to piss off anybody with a brain. So what can we all agree on? Put something on that's just background noise, and it's like, the home improvement shows or whatever, flipping houses or whatever. Say yes to the house or whatever the crap is. But they've started showing that because it is absolutely apolitical.
I know. And Sunny Hostin said that, like, all these women are multi-millionaires too that are on that show. Sunny Hostin said that her daughter, she was scared for her daughter's future because she now has less rights than she does. What kind of statement is that? So a multi-millionaire has a daughter, and she thinks they have less rights than she did before Trump was elected.
No, she's espousing hyperbole.
It's just idiotic.
I don't know if she believes it or not. Sonny's an idiot.
Yep.
I really think Whoopi ended up with a mental illness about Trump. But for the most part, like I said, Whoopi is supremely talented. She's the one person on there that I think has the actual potential to be funny.
Yep.
And I go back to Jumping Jack Flash, where she's in a phone booth being drug off by a tow truck or whatever, and she's yelling in the phone, "I'm a small black woman in a big metal box." She was hilarious in that movie, and again, she has talent. It's just I don't know what happened to her to radicalize her that much and hate Trump that much. I don't like everything Trump says, and I certainly don't like the way he says things a lot of times. But just to have this vitriol for this man that, he's not the second coming of Thomas Jefferson. Like I said, he's a populist. He's going to wet his finger, stick it in the air, see which way the wind is blowing, and that's what he believes.
Yep.
All right. The blame game has started. And look, some of these are
out.
Some of these are very, very accurate.
Oh, yeah.
And look, this is a after action review or a post-mortem, if you want to put it like that.
Yeah, it is a post-mortem, yeah.
And evaluate what they did wrong. And it was everything. The race beginning to end was just a mess.
Well, I mean, it all started when they put Joe Biden in a debate with Trump before the Democrat National Convention. And I don't know if you saw Joe Biden speak this week, but he looked like a normal person again. I don't know what they did to him during that debate, but he looked, I mean, I don't know. I still go back and think that was some kind of conspiracy to get Biden out of the race, putting him in that debate and making him look so bad debating Trump. But so they're going back and they're blaming Biden for not getting out sooner. They're saying he should have got out sooner. Biden basically, when he does his tell-all, I know he's going to say he would have beat Trump if he would have stayed in. And I'm not certain that he's not right. If he would have stayed in, he would have beat Trump.
It would have been closer. Because, look, but then, she lost his hometown. She lost Scranton.
She only did better in a couple counties nationwide than he did. And then, she picks this Minnesota governor, Tim Walz, who was a big-time goofball. I mean, that was a terrible pick. She should have picked Josh Shapiro out of Pennsylvania, the mayor of Pennsylvania. She probably would have won that state then and could have potentially won some of the other swing states by picking somebody in that area.
And yes, it's never been a better nickname for a state than the Keystone State, because that was the Keystone.
So that was a huge error, her picking Tim Walz. And then, when people asked her, and then she was just unprepared for normal questions, like, what would you do different than Biden? And her response was, there's not a thing that comes to mind. So, you can't have that answer when somebody says, well, what would you do different than Biden? You've got to have an answer to that. Even if you don't throw him under the bus, you just say it a little different, right? I would do this or I would do that.
And I said this during the campaign. If she would just stand up and they would ask her about Biden policies, and say, I am the vice president and I serve the president. We have private conversations, and sometimes I agree with them, or most times I agree with them, sometimes I don't. But I keep all that behind closed doors because I amongst other things, I'm his advisor. Yeah. I give my advice, but ultimately the president makes the decisions on policy, and my job is to follow in line. Now, if you ask me going forward, what would I change? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, and say this is what I would change going forward.
Yeah, and then the woke stuff was bad. I mean, they've got to get out of the woke stuff. I mean, they care more about pronouns and the cross-dressers in the party than they do about the working class person. And that's their fault. They went hardcore left, and that's not where the country is. And they lost middle-of-the-road people.
They lost Michigan. And I was not all that hopeful for Michigan. Connie's hometown went blue, which she was not happy with. But the state ultimately went red. And you're talking about a very, very blue state when it comes to union memberships. But the fact is, Trump tied into the working man. And Michigan is outside of Ann Arbor, which is University of Michigan. You have Michigan State, and you have the universities up there that will be intellectual pockets. But overall, the populace in Michigan is hardworking, blue collar. Get us back to work. Get the factories going. We just want to make cars. And Trump tied into that, and she did not. And when you talk about the woke stuff, the biggest mistake she has made in her political career, which I believe is now over, is she doesn't think about being on camera. So when she's pandering to different groups, if I'm going to talk to a trans group, I'm going to talk about, yes, anybody who wants the surgery should get it, even if they're in prison. And the Trump team took that video and ran with it. Literally. They literally ran a race on what a nutcase she is. But the Walz pick was absolutely awful. The not knowing how to separate herself from Biden while being respectful. And look, I said before, I think Biden despises her.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's no doubt.
And the going joke is, I wouldn't be surprised if Biden didn't vote for Trump. He does not like that woman. He boxed himself into a corner when he said he's going to pick a woman of color, so he had no other place to go. I mean, who are you going to pick? Liz Warren? So, when you come out with, I am going to hit this demographic to be my running mate, you're stuck, because there aren't that many women of color that were ready to take on the mantle of vice president, and I would argue that she wasn't either.
Yeah, I just saw that Tim Walz lost his home county against Trump. So the county he lives in, he lost. That just shows you how unpopular he was up in Minnesota.
Now, Minnesota still went blue, but you have to be strategic. John F. Kennedy did not like Johnson. They didn't get along. Bobby despised Johnson. And vice versa. But Kennedy knew he needed a Southerner, and he needed an older person to add weight to the ticket, and he needed a Southerner, so he got Johnson out of Texas. And Johnson delivered Texas to him. So you have to be strategic with, well, I don't even know how many electoral votes Minnesota has. 5? Because I think 3 is the minimum. Alaska has 3. Hawaii has 3. So I have 5. But you start talking about Pennsylvania's got, 16, 17 electoral votes?
Yes, it does.
So if you look strategically, is you need to find the running mate that's going to help deliver a state, or one that is from a state that's not in question. J.D. Vance, Ohio. Ohio was never in question. Ohio was going to go red. So first thing when you pick a running mate is the Hippocratic oath of do no harm, and she harmed herself with Tim Walz. Tim Walz is an idiot. He's a liar. And I honestly think that his political career is over, certainly on the national level. I mean, I don't know how much time he has left as governor, but he's, maybe he might make the Senate because he has a statewide organization, obviously, to be governor. But I think Tim Walz is more or less done. He got exposed. He got exposed for what he is. And so does she. She can go back to California, and I don't know what the hell she's going to do, retire. I mean, you really don't hear anything about former vice presidents anymore.
Nope, she's done.
And as she should be. As she should be. So, Kath, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I think I talked enough.
Your wife would agree, I'm sure.
Probably.
So if you like what you heard, please like and share us, inflict us on your friends. This was a very federal show. We didn't do as much on state politics, but soon enough we'll start looking at the agendas for our state legislature, and unfortunately, in a few months we'll start talking about the 26th election, because we just can't take a year off and not have phone calls and polls and all that stuff, because these pundits have to work 52 weeks a year. So, big thank you to Eric Cumby, who takes our awful audio, turns into something you listen to. Thanks to my partner this endeavor, Ken Pullen, Commissioner-elect. I'm Dave Roberts. We'll talk to you next week.
Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.